Okay, so this is part 2 of the sequences series in sigma notation, and I'm actually going to be diving into the sigma notation right now. This is that new letter I was telling you about in the previous video. This is a more convenient way of working out series problems. So you're going to see this Greek symbol here. In fact, let me just go ahead. I'm working at number 36, so let me go ahead and write out what it says for number 36, and then I'll explain what each of these things mean. So we have the yellow, the sigma notation, and then we'll do in blue our lower bound. So, and actually, let me just give a more general form of the equation. So you'll have a first term, okay? It'll be some first term plus the second term plus the third term, or the sum of the third term, and this can go on and on and on until, you know, whatever desired term you want to have. And this relates very much to the problems that we did before, where let's say you want to find the sum of the nth term, right? So this would be this number down here. This represents my lower bound, okay? And that would be the first term that you have. Okay, so for this problem, you start with n equals 1. And where do you finish? Well, you look at the last one. This is my upper bound. Okay, so that number on top of the sigma tells you where you finish where your series finishes, and that's what the letter K here represents. That K represents the upper bound of the problem. So for example, with 36, I have upper bound of 8 and a lower bound of 1 with a formula of 6n minus 11. So what I would do then, or what that means, is that again, I start off at 1, right? I start off at 1, so that means my first one, I replace my n. So you see here my n. I will replace my n with my first term, which is my lower bound 1. So that's 6 times 1 minus 11. And again, this is a summation, right? So that means I'm adding the next term as well, the value of the next term in this equation. So instead of having a 1, and my n is replaced now with my second term, 2 minus 11. And then I do the same thing with my third term, minus 11. And I continue doing this all the way till I reach 8. So let me just go ahead and do the values of each of these. This is going to be negative 5 plus 1, and then plus the value of this. This is 18 minus 11. That's 7, right? So this is what my A1 represents, my A2, and then my A3. But I still need to get the rest of these. I need my A4, A5, A6, A7, and A8. Okay, and I'm adding all of these terms. Okay, this is a sigma notation for or an example of how to use sigma notation. So let's go ahead and continue. Let me find the rest of these terms. So I finished with term number 3, so I'm going to continue on with term number 4, and then finally 8. Okay, here goes. So that's 24 minus 11, that's 13. I'm going to do a different color, that's 13. And then here is 30 minus 11, that's 19. And that's 36 minus 11, that's 25, 37. So here I have all the values from my lower bound 1 to my upper bound value of 8. And so now all I got to do is add them together. Okay? And so when I add all of these together, I end up with the value of 128. And I have completed my problem for number 36. Now one other thing I want you to take notice of here is if you look at from A1 to A2 and then to A3, A4, and so on, look at the difference between these numbers. I'm adding 6 every time, right? So you'll notice that with this, my pattern continues plus 6 all the way through. Okay? So keep that in mind. This pattern should be visible in others as well. And you know, it may not be in some, so you know, you just have to kind of wait and see with some of these problems as you work them out. You might identify a pattern, and then you can just kind of go off of that pattern and solve the problem a little bit quicker. So let's look at number 38. Let's do number 38 here. So sigma, okay, my upper bound is 7, and my lower bound is, where do you want me to start? At number 1. And then the formula is n squared n minus 5. Okay, so let's begin. So my lower bound is 1, so that'll be n 1 squared times 1 minus 5 plus 2 squared times 2 minus 5 plus 3 squared times 3 minus 5. And then I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead. I'll show you what it looks like when I have them all down. So here goes. Okay, so here we go. So here I have all of my terms from all the way from 1 to my upper bound to 8. Okay? So now I'm going to do is I'm going to find the value for each of these terms, right? So from my first term, which is A1, my second term, my A2, all the way to my 7th term. Oh, you know what? This is my upper bound is 7. It's not 8, so I actually don't need to do this one. My upper bound is 7, so this will be my A7. So I want to find all the values of these terms. So let me find the value for the first ones. I'll find the value for these first ones, and then I'll skip ahead when I have them all done. So that's 1. So this is negative 4 times 1. That's negative 4 plus negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. Alright, so here I have listed from my A1, my lower bound, to my upper bound, A7, 98. So now what I want to do is I want to add all these together. I end up with 84. So then that's the value for this particular problem, for the sum of this problem. It is 84. Okay, so I hope this video helped, and what I want you to do is I want you to do the odds now for the ones that I skipped, and practice this on your own to see how you do.